of the report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you very much to the organizers for coordinating this space, which is the best way to exchange our learned lessons and our challenges also. And that's the way we build capacity in our countries, in our regions. I'm glad to talk to you about these findings and these conclusions. Since we met for the last time of this group in Trinidad and Tobago, we realized that we should be more public. We need to spread this message, not only the gaps, not only the challenges, but also the achievements. So that's what we are doing here. I hope it's very clear for you. I'm not stopping in the text. You can find the report and you can find all the insights of this in the documents. I just want to highlight some key messages for today. The first thing, the first conclusion, we have made some achievements, and you saw the figures. You can see there is PCB eliminated in a proper way, but we are struggling with other challenges, and PCB are there still to be eliminated. So the first thing is we need to find a way to fulfill the obligations we have. And it is not only to report, it is not only about national implementation plans and the updated national implementation plans. It's more complex than this. But these reports are the base, are the most important income for our reports. So this report is as reliable as your information, as our information is. We consider the lack of reporting as a challenge. We heard in plenary that just a few parties had reported during the 4th and the 5th national reports round. So that was one of our main concerns, how to improve, how to increase this rate of submissions of information. And one of the things that could help to increase this rate is to improve and develop a better way to report. That's what the Secretariat and other experts were working in, and we can find this change in the 5th national report round, and the dashboard that Agustin mentioned is also part of these improvements, just trying to increase the rate of submission of information. We think that this increase in the amounts of PCB eliminated locally could be a sign that our capacity is also increasing. So we can say that some countries, for example, Colombia, during the last 5 or 6 years, built capacity to destroy locally PCB. But it's a truth that for some developing countries, exportation is the only way to get rid of this PCB. So this is other thing we should consider, but it's not a local or national issue. It's a regional or even a global issue to be tackled. I mentioned this use of the dashboards. I think this is the way we can access and understand information, and doing it public, we can have even more feedback about it. But there is an issue that should be raised, and it is about a quarter of the PCB formally produced went to open applications. And we are not in the way to deal with these applications of PCB. So we should accelerate our management, especially for this topic. And well, about recommendations, these 2 recommendations are quite obvious, isn't it? We should fulfill our obligations under the Stockholm Convention, for equipment, for closed applications, but also for open applications. To be more specific, I would say we should accelerate updating and maintaining our national inventories just to know where and how much equipments or closed containers we should get rid of. The report is not the main issue, but is a reflex of our internal management systems, let's say that. And this is the base, as I said, of our report. The progress relies on our information. So this is an obligation we should fulfill. And I think we should promote and facilitate the spread of this message. When we went public, we can have even more feedback. And that feedback is more than welcome from you for our reports, but also for our national management systems. So we should be more public. And I invite you to check this formal reporting formats and the reporting dashboards that Secretariat made available to check the information and analyze it. We should enhance synergies between conventions. Agustin mentioned we use information from Basel Convention because of the imports and exports movement. So it should be enhanced, but we call for consistency in this information. As I mentioned, and I will be reiterative in this, we should find reliable information to make a good report. And we request this new small intersectional working group to be established to continue to assist to the conference of parties, to us, to build these tools, to build these strategies, these guidelines for inventories. But again, it's just with feedback, the way we can develop and build these tools properly. So that's from my side. I hope you can see the reports inside and provide feedback to us. Thank you very much.
Is it okay? I can't see it. Thank you. So should I go? Good afternoon. My name is Chizuru Aoki. As introduced, I come from the GF Secretariat. So today we have a very short presentation prepared to give you an overview of the PCBs and what the GEF is doing. So before I get started, I just wanted to let you know that I'm actually, many moons ago, I'm trained as an engineer. And one of my first jobs as an engineering intern was for an engineering company. And the first thing that I had to learn how to do was learn how to drive a truck. And then take that truck to all these different industrial sites to do, back in those days, we call them audits, right? And, you know, I'm doing all kinds of audits, looking at transformers, all kinds of equipment, dutifully looking at them, you know, seeing if there are leaks. And this is way before the existence of the Stockholm Convention or WRF. And so I did these things for quite some time. And so, you know, there is at least an academic understanding at that point of the need to keep track of transformers. What are some of the equipment as well as issues? But what I did not have access to at that point is, you know, what does that mean to actually take the PCBs out? And what are some of the technologies that would actually help us destroy it? And really the human aspect of it. So in a way, I really wish we had something like this many moons ago when I was being trained as an engineer, but here we are. And we really want to thank Roll for having this idea as well as good initiative with so many different booths and from different perspectives to educate us all about the PCB as well as what we need to be doing for the upcoming deadlines. Okay, do I press this one? Yes. Okay. So today we do have a booth over there. There's a new Jeff logo. And this actually gives you at a glance what the GEF is doing in terms of PCB projects. At this point, we have projects in 115 countries, 82 projects, and we have so far programmed $4 million. And these projects have catalyzed about $2.8 billion of co-financing. And the co-financing is coming from many sources, a lot of industrial contributions, governments, centers, and so on and so forth. And total at this point, these projects are slated to eliminate or manage 107,000 and almost 450 metric tons of PCBs. Obviously, more needs to be done, but this is the snapshot. If you would like to know what the GEF is doing in your country, please visit the booth. There is an interactive display we have that you can click on your country, and then you will see the GEF project that is already supported in your countries to give you a snapshot, if you will, of what's being made available. Okay. So we also wanted to give just one example. And this is a project of environmentally sound management and disposal of PCBs. And it's a project from South Africa. And we wanted to show this because it's a fairly new initiative, but B, we wanted to also highlight some of the partnerships that have gone into this particular project. It was approved in 2020, and the agency that's implementing this project for the GEF is the DBSA. It's a Development Bank of South Africa. It's one of the GEF agencies. What's really interesting about this project is the partners that have gathered around for this particular initiative. We do have the Africa Institute, which is the regional center, and they're actually putting in-kind contributions to this. ESCOM, which is, I think many of you know who ESCOM is. They're also putting significant amount of co-financing, about $15 million. And DBSA itself is mobilizing close to $20 million of loans. And this is more related to, I guess, industrial renewal. And also, we have utilities as part of the partnership, and they're putting about $12 million of co-financing. We also have a very active engagement of the government with about $8 million of in-kind support. Altogether, we're expecting this project to have an impact of 2,640 metric tons of PCBs phased out by the 2026 deadline. What are some of the activities? It's issues related to building institutional capacity, coupled with the actual PCB treatment and disposal initiatives. So we do have issues related to the support needed for the inventory, upgrading national tracking and record-keeping systems, quite a bit of the development of training materials, as well as the executing and training activities, as well as how to really strengthen the sampling analysis, as well as monitoring capacity for the country to be able to really keep track of what is going on. And on the side of the treatment and disposals, there is an assessment to really see what kinds of available technologies there may be on the PCB treatment and disposal. And there is a technology transfer elements to ensure that the PCB treatment and destruction could be carried out, and the actual treatment to be conducted by throughout the project. So, Many questions have been asked about what is the GEF doing. I think many people know what the GEF has been doing, but this is more the question of what are we going to do given the deadlines are approaching fast. In 2022, during COP10, there was a renewed request to accelerate action to meet the PCB elimination and management deadlines. And we also have a new strategy that spells out activities that can be supported. And there is quite a number of elements in that strategy related to the PCBs. In 2022 to 23, there have been, I would say, the reinforcements of the partnership and the collaboration between the BRS Secretariat and the GEF Secretariat. And this really is based on the question that we still have of, do we really know how much PCBs are out there? And this is the issue I think the report touched upon. So I know the BRS Secretariat colleagues have been working diligently on this issue with, I think it's support from the European Commission, right? And we're engaged in this to see if we can also complement the support. And what we're really trying to do is, based on this exercise of having a much better understanding of how much PCBs are out there, by the end of this year, we would like to be able to invite countries to consider joining a global project. And that's going to be looking into addressing the verified PCB amounts that the secretariats, the BRS Secretariats and the GEF Secretariat will be working on. And then with that, we hope that we can accelerate and facilitate the countries towards meeting the deadlines that would come up just around the corner. This is the last slide we have. Practical notes, I don't know if we can even call them suggestions, but some elements that we wanted to convey. One is that, and I think this may be plainly, obviously understood by all of you, but wanted to say that, it would be good that if you select the activities that will suit your country's situations and needs. What the GEF can support is almost like a menu of options. Identification, develop inventory of PCBs, promoting environmentally sound management, capacity building, institutional strengthening. Those elements can also be considered, and storage of PCBs until treatment, as well as the actual treatment and disposal. And I think how those pieces were coming together, the South Africa project example is a good one. And the second one, and we were having this discussion with Anil Sukhdev, who's sitting here, who's the chemicals and waste coordinator. Where does the remaining PCBs, where are these things? And I think based on that discussion, it's very clear that we really need to be really looking at to the owners of the equipment of the PCB. And they, at this point, might be more in the hands of the utilities and private sector. I think governments have done a quite nice job already of addressing the issue. So engaging with the owners of these equipment and getting them on board on the initiatives is quite important. And one element is that perhaps, depending on the country context, these people might not still be aware of the convention deadlines as well as obligations that are coming around. So from that perspective, we also think it's really critical to be looking into what are some of the financial packages that could be mobilized to address upgrading of infrastructure and where the GEF resources could go in to help in those kinds of activities. We could be used, our resources could be used at the end of the day for the disposal and management, while there might be larger scale investment packages that are being pulled together with MDBs as well as national development banks and other donors to be able to do more of a transformation of the industry. Last but not least, let us get moving. The deadlines are coming around soon. And as I said, there will be an opportunity for countries to consider the global projects as well as any other specific initiatives that you might be considering with the support of the GEF. So with that, this was taken a couple days ago. You will recognize most of these people. This is the Jeff group. Plus, we have one more person who came yesterday. So if you see one of us at the booth or anywhere, please do feel free to talk to us. We'd be more than happy to provide you with additional information. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to all of our speakers. That was really interesting for each and every one of your presentations. And we wanted to make this as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions for the speakers, feel free to put your hand up and we will come to you in order with the roaming microphone. Why don't we go for the man at the front here?
Thank you very much. It's really interesting. Ethiopia, my country is Ethiopia. We are one of the beneficiary of the GF grant for the disposal of PCB, and we are grateful for that. My question is how GF views the building of the capacity of developing countries, that is the disposal of PCB in that country or in the same country without transporting the PCB to other country. Because I'm talking this about because it's one of the demands of the developing countries, inventory and then after transporting this waste. So what's really there to build the capacity of the developing countries? Thank you.
It's a really useful question. Thank you. I'll pass over straight.
Do you want to take this or do you want to take that one? Thank you for that question. I can answer the capacity building elements. Obviously, the capacity building of the government as well as the private sector as well as any other partners that will be engaged in the PCB management disposal will be eligible, as well as something that we are obviously encouraging to be integrated into the project design. On the specific question on the transport, I'm going to ask Anil Sukhdeo to answer this. He's basically shaking his head.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. So just in addition to what Chiz mentioned, the majority of our PCB-funded projects do build capacity within owners and technicians of who handle PCB-containing equipment, including transformers and capacitors, so that they build up standard operating procedures. So when they have to maintain equipment that contains PCBs, they don't cross-contaminate others, and so you don't create the problem. In terms of transport, some countries do get challenges because of Basel regulations that prevent transport across borders. So in Latin America, for example, it's impossible to move PCB waste to be disposed of across borders, even though some countries within that region have quite robust capacity to dispose. So in many cases, we would have to, we work with countries to decant, package, and ship, usually by ship, to Europe, which accepts PCB containing waste to be disposed of. So it's difficult. It's a difficult question, but it's more of a political question for countries to be able to allow those regulations to facilitate the transport, because some of the Basel regulations that you have do prevent the transport from Ethiopia, for example, to South Africa, where you can dispose easily. Thanks.
If I may add from the Secretariat, more maybe from personal experience as well, a couple of things on your question, and this is a very important, one of the most important questions. Should we develop local capacities? Should we rely on external capacities? And I think it's a mixture of both options. No, we need to talk about cost-effective action and to really use the resources that we have on the best way possible. one or two things. The first one, to recognize, and this is something that from the BRS perspective we're looking at when developing local or regional capacities to deal with PCBs, we are also developing capacities to deal with other pop waste. So we are having new challenges, lots of industrial POPs being listed under the convention that have many applications might be found around us at the moment. And, but this is also pop waste that has to be disposed and following the Basel technical guidelines, destroyed on an efficiency of 99.9999, something like that. So if countries really want to move forward and develop local capacities for efficient extraction technologies, they will not only be building capacities to deal with PCBs, which will be in a short term, but also looking forward on a long term and scaling up to deal with many other pop waste that will be, it is actually already, a bigger challenge and a new challenge for many, many parties. That's one thing. On the other side, we have to have a balance on also the proximity, how do I call it, under the Basel Convention, there's a provision, no, that you should avoid long transport. And somebody was speaking, I think it was IPEN today in plenary, about the risk of moving. And maybe we can build on this, on the challenges of moving PCB waste. Anil has already highlighted what happened in my region, in Grulac. But also, again, sometimes it's also difficult to set up technologies with countries with no experience or legislation or capacity to operate and implement correctly in a safely manner this type of extraction technologies. So I think there's no one solution for everything. It's a case-to-case basis. And again, cost-benefit analysis and looking for the best environmental practices, PAT and BEP, no, that we all know, is part of the answer. But I don't think that there's a one solution for everything. I don't know, maybe you.
Just to add a little and short example, once the first project about PCB in Colombia was in finishing, and our inventory was set up, we realized that we can, instead of transporting PCB waste, we can transport technologies. So we could eliminate hundreds of tons of PCB with a plant that was imported from Argentina, from Peru, from other countries, and we can deal with this PCB. But once we have the information in our preliminary inventory to say, okay, we can deal with this because the maximal amount of PCB that could be eliminated with that technology, it's the majority of the PCB we have. So once the information is over the table, you can make the proper decisions. That would be my
Thank you. I know we did have, did you have something to say relevant to?
No, it's a different question.
Okay, different question. I think the man at the back actually got there before you, so we'll go to him first. We'll come back to you.
Thank you very much. I'm working for Unido Jakarta, working for the PCB project since 2013. I got one question and would like to also share one experience. One question, please. First, I'm very happy to see that how much we are progressing with PCB disposal. But back to my country experience, it's a bit frustrating that because I found out that 60% of our case for the transformer is cross-contaminated. So as now we are trying to dispose PCB, I'm worried that our disposing rate is outnumbered by the cross-contamination rate. So I think we also much focus on how to prevent this cross-contamination. At least that is in my country. So I wonder if Jeff predicts the rate of cross-contaminations globally for new transformer that get PCBs, because that's the case in Indonesia. And the second thing is, while sometimes I feel it's a bit much frustrating working with PCB. Sometimes you just find a good partner. In Indonesia, we're working with ADB Jakarta, with one power generating company in the state, and we could find some synergy there because we have the same interest in PCBs, and we've been able to create some synergy for 1 year to support our state electricity managing their PCB. So I think it's very important not to be alone in your country, but to find other partners that also interesting on PCBs, and also to provide more significant technical backstopping for the industry, big one, because in Indonesia they're willing to do PCB disposal, but they don't know how to start. So I think that is a thing that we must consider to get this 2028 target. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a great point about partnering up. I think lots of people in different countries will have the same. And then for the question to Jeff, I wonder whether, Chiz, you want to respond to that?
No. I think you would be, you are the program manager for the project, right? So I think you would be best placed to really look into these issues, no?
Then the lady in the front, thank you very much for waiting.
It's all right. Thank you very much, and thank you as well for your presentations. I had a question for the chief presenter. No. It's easy, don't worry. I saw you indicated reference to finance packages. I was hoping that you could elaborate on this, given, of course, the deadline is pretty close, I think, and of course, we're hearing issues as well in terms of, with disposal, with transportation, etc. I think it would be useful if we can find incentives to try to encourage pitch generators, what the case may be, to actually get rid of these items. So if you could perhaps elaborate on that point first, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that very good question. Basically, we operate through the 18 GF agencies, right? And some of them are what we call the multilateral development banks or regional development banks. In some cases, such as what we have showed as an example for South Africa, there is a national development bank. So it is actually feasible to look for opportunities working through the MDBs and other financial institutions that might be ready to catalyze larger scale loans. It could be concessional, it could be non-concessional, and really find a way for the sweet spot where the GF resources can be then combined together with the financial packages that might be being considered by the MDBs as well as the national development banks. It could even be private financing. And then there is the issue of how do you either make the technical assistance elements related to the PCB removal where the out resources could go in, or you can even look into the whole notion of how to make the financing more concessional towards really buying down the risk as well as the making it more affordable to the countries as well as the those who are in need of having the upgrading of the systems. So those are some of the ways in which we encourage. But come to think of it, it need not be actually a project implemented by MDBs as long as whoever's pulling it together is able to tap into and catalyze, if you will, these kinds of investment packages that are being considered for the country or the particular sector. Oh, sorry. Here.
Thank you. And just to add to that, and a small announcement on sustainable funding, the Secretariat, in collaboration with a small intersectional working group and some consultants, also prepared an INF document. If I remember correctly, it's INF 30 on sustainable funding for PCB elimination, where these aspects are discussed. We will have a short presentation on the closure of the fair on sustainable funding for PCB elimination. So you're all invited Friday afternoon. I'm sure there will be something announced on that. But also say that when it comes to replacement of contaminated equipment, GEF money or any donor money won't be enough. Transformers are really, really expensive. So huge investments has to be done in order to replace these technologies. And for that, we need other partners. The BRS Secretariat has been discussing and we've been meeting with some of them. There are many countries having cleaner energy programs or green energy programs where huge investments are made and new installed capacity for energy distribution is done. And I think that kind of approaches with and partnering with them to specifically deal with the issue of replacing equipment that should be taken out of service and dechlorinated or disposed is one of the main things when talking about sustainable funding. We will have further discussion on this on Friday. But I invite you for that to read INF 30 so that you can prepare and with further questions on this matter as well.
So we have time for one more question. Is there one more burning question in the audience? I'll give you like 5 seconds. No, I thought maybe you were thinking. No, that's great. Look, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. You will obviously have time to now go around looking at the booths again, as you have been doing. You can find all the information on the fair, on the BRS app, and on the website. Thank you so much to all of you for coming, for all of your hard work. All the information has been fascinating at the booths, and thank you to all of our speakers. Enjoy the afternoon.